During the heyday of sideshows, some people were exhibited as living skeletons. Famous examples include Isaac W. Sprague and the dapperly dressed Artie Atherton, nicknamed the Skeleton Dude, who toured with P.T. Barnum. Living skeletons were rarely women, but Emma Schaller was an example of one. These men and women were often suffering from muscular atrophying diseases. Similar to these performers were ossified persons, people suffering from diseases such as ankylosis that cause their muscles and joints to contract, stiffen, and solidify. In the very rare case of those with fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, their connective tissue would literally turn to bone. Ivanov Vladislaus von Czarsky-Orlov, billed as Count Orloff, was another man with severe contractures and skeletal deformities, as well as thin skin that was said to be nearly transparent, and early pamphlets for shows said that if a light was shone on his torso, you could read a newspaper through it. There is a notable woman from this period with a brief but significant presence who then seemed to literally disappear. Rosa Lee Plemons was often exhibited as the ossified girl and weighed just 27 pounds at the age of 18, making her then, and still, the lightest fully grown adult, that is to say someone without dwarfism or another size-limiting disorder, ever recorded. Other than occasional mentions of her shockingly low weight in record books or articles documenting medical extremes, there are very few write-ups about her life available online. The scant information that is available is mostly unsourced and combines into a few general points outlining her life. It's generally said that she was born in 1873 and toured from the age of 18 as an oddity due to her unbelievably low weight. The classic book of medical oddities, 1898's Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine by George Gould and Walter Pyle, has a brief one-line mention of her and also supplies us with the only photo of Rosalie that is known to exist. The story, as it's commonly told, even in the limited recountings of it, is that she was supposedly kidnapped and exhibited by a man claiming to be her father, then disappeared sometime after 1891, kidnapped by someone else while on exhibition, with her ultimate fate remaining unknown. However, using different archives and record sources, I have put together information that helps to answer at least some of the questions surrounding her life, though I admit there are many unanswered questions remaining about her, and my research opens up some entirely new avenues of questioning. The first public mention of Rosalie comes in November 1891, when the Fort Worth Daily Gazette mentions her and her family coming to the city. Her father arrived with her by train, along with her two younger brothers, aged about 8 and 10. The children's mother had died the previous spring, and Mr. Plemons was traveling with his children, the family having come from their home in Tulare County, California. In the article, Rosalie was described in part: her head is of usual size, and she has clear, bright eyes, short dark hair, regular features. It would say that she could not walk or support herself, and rested in bed or an easy chair. She had control of her head and neck to her shoulders, and was able to move her head at will. The muscles in her limbs were atrophied, and could not be straightened out. Her right leg permanently crossed over her left, and her arms folded in her middle. She enjoyed riding in cars, and was excited to see one pass as her family rode the train. She was not able to speak, but laughed when she saw things that delighted her, and apparently had great hearing. She apparently had a good appetite whenever she ate, and required feeding by others, but was unable to gain weight. Both the boys in the family were described as healthy and fine-looking. I haven't yet found any census information that places the family in Tulare or anywhere else, so this background may have to be taken with a grain of salt. I am, however, inclined to believe for now that this was genuinely Rosalie's family, and that the man claiming to be her father actually was. I don't know who the two young boys would be if he was an impostor, and at this stage there was no mention of Rosalie appearing on exhibition. The next update comes about 10 months later when Rosalie and her father are in Springfield, Missouri, where it is first mentioned that she will be making public appearances for money. Her father stated that he never wanted to exhibit her, but that people kept coming to see her anyway, so he felt compelled and relented. The article states that he has 3 younger children, not just the 2 boys, but again describes the children and father as all being healthy in appearance, and Mr. Plemons states that their mother had been a normal, healthy size before her death too. He also mentions that Rosalie has a complete understanding of her surroundings and events around her, and that she is a rational person who enjoyed stable health despite her disease process. The article also mentions that there are plans to bring Rosalie to the upcoming World's Fair in Chicago, though I don't believe they ended up following through. Just 5 days later, while still in Springfield, a second article appeared confirming a deal between Rosa Lee's father, named as Thomas Plemons, and a promoter for her exhibition, the manager J.E. Ackerman. The contract was for 5 years and would pay Thomas $50 a week while his daughter was toured, with intended destinations across the United States and even Europe. At the conclusion of the contract signing, Thomas carried his daughter to a photo gallery where she had her picture taken, and I believe this is the origin of the solitary picture we have of Rosa Lee. It's hard to say for sure what the intentions were here, or if Rosa Lee's father believed this was the right decision. Many sideshow performers from the era, who maintained some control over their public appearances and finances, would go on to mention the financial benefits and security that came with performing, and social conditions that otherwise would have left them impoverished, and the empowerment that came with turning a physical disability or deformity into great success. Rosa Lee did not have control over her own life, and her father may have figured this was the best option she was ever going to get. It's easy to imagine a shady sideshow manager taking advantage of a cash-strapped widower who needed money to support his family, which included his disabled daughter. Maybe Thomas figured that Rosa Lee being on tour would provide more money and proper care than he could ever give her. At the same time, this could just be a story about a father looking to loosen himself from what he considered a burdensome family member and make a considerable amount of money from her exhibition. When putting together limited second-hand historical resources, we can only do our best to find and fill out the real story. And unfortunately, often there's a lot of supposition and interpretation that means the story could go either way. I've not found any additional information about J.E. Ackerman outside of his involvement in these events. I'm not sure what his full name was, or even if that was his real name. Being an unscrupulous promoter in the sideshow business, there's a chance that it wasn't. It can also be noted that ads for Rosa Lee's appearances placed by Ackerman frequently stated that proceeds would be going to the Little Sisters of the Poor charity, but the organization in Indianapolis actually had to release a statement that they did not approve of the event and they were no way associated with it. From here, she would tour the country for roughly the next 6 months. I found ads for appearances in Indiana and Ohio, and there's references to her touring states on the eastern coast. A later article says that she was exhibited as the Spider Girl, or Human Spider, in New York, and I found references billing her under that moniker during appearances in other cities. She was also apparently sometimes called the Australian Ossified Girl to add an exotic foreign flair, as exhibitions of the time would do on occasion. Her frequently cited weight of 27 pounds is the one that is reported most often, though one article lists it as 29 pounds. The original Fort Worth article and her early announcements in Springfield said that she was only 18 pounds, which seems unbelievable even in her case. Her weight likely shifted over time, and there's no telling what was a genuine measurement and what was part of the sideshow marketing. Her height is variously listed as being just over 4 feet and 4 feet 6 inches. Given how frozen and contracted her joints and muscles were, it's not hard to understand why it was difficult to measure her. Some estimates seem to have been made by measuring different parts of her body and extrapolating from there. I have found two exact birth dates for Rosa Lee given in different articles. One birth date is given as October 10th, 1873, another gives September 15th, 1874. 1873 is the most common year given for her both by most sources now, and most news articles from the period giving her then current age line up with this, give or take a year. In January 1893, Rosa Lee was reported as missing. Chief of Police in Little Rock, Arkansas, Frank McMohan, was asked by Thomas Plemons for help. Chief McMohan sent out letters to numerous police officials in cities across the country asking them if they had seen Rosa Lee and Ackerman in their cities. The chief from Wheeling, West Virginia responded that he did, and Rosa Lee was recovered. J.E. Ackerman unfortunately managed to skip town and prosecution for the kidnapping. Rosa Lee was reunited with her father at the Ozark House in Little Rock. From here, things go from patchy but somewhat sensible and coherent to very confusing due to incomplete sources. In November 1894, Rosa was reported missing again, this time from McKinney, Texas, where she had been exhibited in a dime museum. The police marshal of McKinney, Sam Burks, sent a letter to Kansas City Police Chief Spears alerting him to be on the lookout for her. How long she had been missing and when and by whom she had been kidnapped was not disclosed. Also undisclosed was the reason Burks believed she may have been taken to Kansas City. Fitting with that, Chief Spears stated that he did not believe she was in the city. Inhumanely, Kansas City newspaper articles reporting this referred to Rosa Lee's kidnapping and disappearance as a theft, as if she were a stolen item that the dime museum proprietor wanted back. It is perhaps not relevant, but interesting to note that McKinney is only an hour or two from Fort Worth, where she first became known to the public 3 years earlier, almost bringing things full circle. Unbeknownst to McKinney police, though, the attempt to locate Rosa Lee in Kansas City was in vain by November 1894, a testament to how news did not always travel fast, or sometimes at all in those days. Press outlets and police agencies did not always communicate across counties, let alone the whole country, and sometimes important information was missed. Because Rosa Lee Plemons had died 2 months earlier in September in Cincinnati. A city newspaper reported her passing, stating that she had been in the infirmary for the past year since being dropped off by a man known only as Whitting, who had been trying to exhibit her there before ditching her and disappearing. Whitting claimed to have been paid to tour Rosalie by her father. He said Mr. Plemons lived in Muldrow Indian Territory, now Oklahoma, and was representing him while touring his daughter. Authorities investigated Muldrow and found that no one matching Thomas Plemons' name or description was living there, and he could not be located. Whitting had one previous documented case of trying to exhibit Rosa Lee in Louisville, but city officials had denied him the ability to, and he was run out of the city. Rosa Lee had been left in Cincinnati. She had been there in the care of the city infirmary ever since, and passed away in September 1894, the cause of death being listed as general debility. So in the end, she did not disappear at the hands of yet another kidnapper. It can be said, perhaps mercifully, that she had passed away before being exhibited and exploited further. One can only hope that she was able to enjoy some happiness, or at least some comfort, from the medical staff at the Cincinnati Infirmary in the final months of her life. There are, of course, many questions that remain from this final set of events. Who was Whitting? Was he J.E. Ackerman under a different name? What happened to Rosalie's father and family? Perhaps her father had died by this point, leading to further exploitation under new guardianship. What happened after she was returned to her father in Arkansas? When had she been taken to McKinney, Texas to be exhibited in the Dime Museum? Why the large gap between her reported disappearance from McKinney and the search for her? She had already been in Cincinnati for a year, dropped off by whoever Whitting was who claimed to be managing her. What happened to her in the year and 8 months between her return to Little Rock and her death in Cincinnati is a mystery and a mess of scattered details that don't paint a very coherent picture. Currently, there's a lot of information missing, making it difficult to put it all together. If you know anything else about Rosalie's story, please feel free to share it. Though it was unfortunately only noteworthy for its great difficulty, the life of Rosa Lee Plemons is no less deserving of dignity and humanity and the chance to be remembered.